I'm Matt Newton. I'm the technology coordinator at the TTAC at Virginia Tech, both assistive and educational technology. And so you know a little bit more about me. I used to be a special ed teacher in the Roanoke City school system. I did that for a number of years. I worked with students with mostly what the label was multiple disabilities at the time. So I worked in both self-contained and some inclusive settings as well. I also did this in the past. I was an ITRT in the same division for a while as well, so this is not actually a picture of me, although I think I have done this before. But now in my role at TTAC, I get to blend both of those sort of past lives together and skill sets, both from special education, curriculum, and instruction standpoint, and my technology background to hopefully make what we're doing in schools as accessible for all students as possible. But Lisa sort of inspired me this morning to add this picture in as well, just to get some awes, but also to remind me to say that, you know, I don't get to talk with parents and families very often. And it's an honor for me to be able to talk to this group today and the one again in Roanoke tomorrow, because I am now a parent too, not for very long, as you can tell, with the two of them. So while I often talk and teach and train and work alongside folks in a professional sense, I'm also a parent now too. The three main points that I put into my presentation for you today is a little bit about what assistive technology is. Sort of a starting point for us to all look at it. You may have somewhat of an idea. You may have a great idea of what it is, or this may be the first time that you've really heard or thought about it. So I'm going to give you some information about what AT is. We're going to talk about the assistive technology consideration process that is used in Virginia public schools. So you can be aware of the frameworks that are out there for teams, teachers, parents, families to use when considering this. And then we'll talk a little bit about how AT fits into universal design for learning. Okay, so that's a little roadmap of where we're going to be going. I'm a very executive function type person. I like these supports, not only so I know what I'm supposed to be learning while that person's up there talking, but also so I'll know when he's going to be done. I'll know when he's halfway through and when he's almost done. So without any further ado, let's get started. Point number one, what is assistive technology? I can give you the $46 US code version that comes from IDEA, and you can see it right here that says IDEA defines assistive technology as follows. Any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially off the shelf, modified or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of a child with a disability, etc., etc. That is the very lofty code version of what AT is and what it can be. If you boil it down, it can really be anything. I like to simplify it by saying AT is a service, it's an item, it's a device, it's a setting that helps level the playing field for a student with a disability. We're not trying to make super students by giving them AT. We're just trying to take that middle hurdle down to the same level that everybody else is jumping over when they're running through the race of school and their everyday curricular life. And by doing that, we might just make your student unstoppable by doing that, by adding in something that they didn't have as simple as a reacher and grabber before. So, when you think about AT, what are some of the first things that come to your mind? Might be an iPad, good visual, Matt. Might be a communication device, high-tech communication device, we see those around. Might be a software program, right? Even me, the tech guy, when I think about AT, it's very easy for my mind to jump first to high-tech pieces of equipment, right? Things that have a computer chip in them, things that are electronic. But what about, did you see my slides earlier?
That's a good guess.
Good guess. What's the next one? Velcro.
That's good.
Or highlighting pencil. All stuff that we might buy at Staples or Target and use for ourselves, right? Very easy to get, not very expensive, not very likely to break but has really high utility in many uses, and in some cases can be a piece of assistive technology for a student that helps them be able to participate on a level playing field with their peers. I like to show this picture. It's normally not this big. I'm really impressed by the screen behind me that I have here. But I usually ask people to look at this picture and tell me, what assistive technology do you see? Pencils, wheelchair,
The chairs themselves.
Glasses.
The chairs.
glasses. You're all right. You're all correct. What does the person taking this picture want you to see as the piece of assistive technology, or the thing that stands out?
Everything can be assistive technology.
Everything can be, or maybe even, depending on the group that you're working with, they see the wheelchair and leave it at that, right? I like to show this picture to different groups just to get you to thinking outside of that box. AT can be for all students with disabilities, regardless of what it is. Many times I work with teachers, families, schools, divisions, administrators who see AT as something for students that have complex needs, and they leave it at that. All right, so any of these students, whether that little girl back there with the folder system, she may have a color coding system for organizing her materials. That could be a piece of assistive technology. All right. All that being said, what this leads me to is talking to you about what we like to kind of coin as the continuum of assistive technology. We've looked and seen different things, from high-tech things, from iPads to pencil grips. All of those exist on this continuum, from no to low-tech, mid-tech, and high-tech. All the different things fall. So a pencil grip can be a piece of assistive technology, a sophisticated mobility system, or computerized software for dictating to have writing supports can be a piece of assistive technology. It exists on a continuum. This piece of research that I found a little while ago. So, with that being said, that so many different things can be assistive technology, this researcher, a couple of years ago now, 2016, it's the most recent that I could find, did a survey across all disability categories nationwide, not just in Virginia, nationwide. Did a survey of students nationwide with IEPs that are currently utilizing assistive technology in school. What do you think the percentage is?
15.
Wow.
5%. 5%. Now, I sit in an office not far from Diane, and there is one of our other coordinators that sits sort of between us as a math specialist, and she told me that 5% is 1 in 20. I needed her to let me know that. That's good. She's much better at math than I am. 1 in 20 students with IEPs are utilizing assistive technology in school. That doesn't necessarily mean it hasn't been identified that they need it or that it's not in their IEP. The key word is utilizing, right? So what's the problem there? Well, we think there's a couple of problems there. First, assistive technology for all students is often seen as a last resort, a last thing we try. After we try all these other instructional programs, this remediation, this peer tutor, extra time to complete something, all that didn't work, so now we're going to look into some AT for that student. It's seemed as a last resort. What we need to do to remedy it is what we're doing right now. Talking and educating families to be part of the IEP team, as we also do this on the other side with the school-based people too, to understand what AT is, what it can be, the range of tools that are out there, and what the consideration and assessment process for choosing correct assistive technology for a student to support whatever challenge they're facing is. Because I think, if you're asking me, this is not that we're not identifying that students need assistive technology. I think that we're identifying it, but we're not going through a full consideration, a thoughtful consideration process and assessment process to decide what's actually going to work for them. They get a piece of equipment, they get a strategy, they get a tool, they use it for a little while, and then it's on a shelf. And it's not providing them with the support they need longer term. That's why I think that this is so low. okay? And I would, if I can be so bold, I think deciding on assistive technology supports, particularly when students are very young, early childhood, primary, elementary school age, could be one of the critical decision points in special education as well. Because it really gets me right here, and it's one of the, I won't say, well, sad and happy and frustrating things that I get to do on a more often than I like to basis, is consult with teams, including families, teachers, administrators at schools, of high schoolers, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, who they say, well, they're about to transition out into the workplace. I guess we should look into getting them a communication system or something to help them with their writing. That doesn't come up much earlier in their school careers, because it can and it should. So, what is the AT consideration and assessment process that we use here in Virginia? This graphic, which I'll show you how to access these materials, I'll pull out and go to the website that you'll need to be able to find them, kind of depicts what we consider the consideration and assessment process to look like. And you'll notice that it's a circle. And that's not by mistake. We just didn't think it would look good that way. I know it does. It's nice and colorful. But the consideration and assessment process for assistive technology in schools is meant to be not an infinite process, but a continuing process. So it starts with consideration. An IEP team meets. They're setting some goals for a student, and they think there might be some AT needs there that can help them support that. That would move on to a referral process, whether that division has an AT team functioning or somebody that specializes in that area, or has, maybe it's an occupational therapist or a physical therapist that has background knowledge and expertise in the challenge they're facing, to information gathering, to decision making, to trial implementation. And this process goes on and on and on, and can be jumped from one area to another. It's not always a straight line path, but it should at least have these components in there to make sure that you are having a thoughtful and as airtight as possible consideration and assessment process. The Assistive Technology Network's webpage, and I'll pull out here in a minute and show you some of the resources that are on there, has that information on there. And there are also many guidance documents that can be found that families, teachers, teams that are working with students can access while they're going through this process. And I'll try to, it's atnetwork.ttaconline.org is the website to go to. You can click it and go to consideration of AT. And the consideration of AT guide is included in the sample AT consideration guide. I'll go ahead and click the sample. This guide is included in many of the online IP systems that are used in schools throughout the division, and is even being included on the new state IEP system that's out there. This is a guide that IEP teams can use as they go through that consideration process, that box to check as you're going through the IEP process that says, we've considered whether this student has AT needs to meet one or more of their IEP goals. This guide can be used. This is just a sample here. Sample student Bell Gray in the 5th grade of Port Bell Elementary School. And you go through it part by part. Part 1, does the student have IEP goals that require AT solutions in any of these areas? Check them. If yes, areas were identified, you continue on. Do they have IEP goal accommodations in the area of reading? That question is specific for whether or not accessing materials through AIM Virginia might be appropriate. And then strategies that are already in place. And as you go through the document, if you keep checking yes, you keep going through the process, right? If you stop no, go and you click no, then you know that you can stop there. If you click yes and you go all the way through and you come down here to where you have described the AT device and service to be tried or modified, responsible persons, and trials, goes further along that AT consideration and an assessment process, right? Shows you, we're going to try these things, we're going to trial them out, who's going to do it, and by when to report back to the team. So this is just a sample document. Divisions and people can work on something that looks different than this, but it's just an idea to help you think through the process of finding AT that's appropriate and is going to work for a student long term with what we're hoping for. Under this tab as well, you can also find sample documents for the referral process, information gathering, decision making, and trial implementation data sheets. All of those things are here depending on which one of those tabs that you check on. So again, AT Network at ttaconline.org will take you here. Those things are there, but we often find even when we bring that information to teachers, families, and teams working together, they still have a big barrier that they run across. And what that is finding that needle in the haystack, because there are an enormous number of different assistive technology tools that are out there. We talked about from the US code version to our more simplified version. It can really be anything, right? So that is a pretty big pool with which to jump into and try to find something, right? So what sort of resources are out there to help you narrow it down? Back on the AT Network homepage, you may have noticed in the upper right-hand corner, the Assistive Technology Resource Guide. This is a document that you can look at that is a really beginning starting point guide that breaks down different areas of need that a student may have, whether that's reading, writing, math, activities of daily living, that will list some sample suggested example assistive technology tools that a teacher, team, family could try when the IEP team is trying to decide what tools might be right for this situation. Some ideas, right? To be a little more specific than that, when you actually get and you want to narrow down the 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 different options that you think might be appropriate, you might want to go through a process that we like to call SET. And we didn't come up with the idea, I wish we had, but a lady named Joy Zabala created this framework. But SET is just an acronym for Student, Environment, Tasks, and Tools. And what SET does is through that decision-making process, when you've narrowed down to a few choices that you think might be right, helps you winnow that down even further to maybe the 1, 2, or 3 that you actually want to try. SET is not a formal protocol. It's really just a framework to guide, again, the consideration process with AT and trying to determine what type of tool might support a student's need. S is for student. They have strengths highlighted on that, and that's definitely part of it. S, when you're thinking about the student, I want you to think about all their characteristics, everything about them. What do they like? What do they not like? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? You look at the whole picture of the student, everything you can find out about them characteristically. Environment. How's the classroom physically arranged? What are the materials and equipment are used? How is instruction given? Small group, whole class. Things to consider, right, when picking an assistive technology tool. I kind of, use the simplified version of describing environment. If you have a student that's having trouble with handwriting, and typing would be a great assistive technology option for them. If they're in a high school where they're moving from class to class, or in a campus-style school where they're going from building to building, using a word processor that's on a desktop computer is probably not going to be the best option for them, right? Or maybe not even a laptop that they have to carry around from place to place. So understanding the environment, even though, that would be a perfect solution for them. Tasks, what's the class, what are they being expected to do? And what are essential for your child to be successful? And then last, tools. You'll notice that it's SET, not T-SET. We always put the tool last. It's very easy for everybody involved in looking at a student's well-being and wanting them to be successful and goal-oriented and accomplish what they need to in school to get really excited about the tool and go to that first, right? iPads are going to be great for everybody. They're going to solve the world's problems. So I'll buy iPads and issue them and show up with them and it'll be great, right? I like this graphic. goes along with SET, because what we try to do with this is make the tool fit the student, not the student fit the tool. And I'm going to walk off my camera just for a minute, because I like this graphic a lot too. Because of the size of this upside down pyramid, like we were discussing with the SETT, you want the most information about the student and their characteristics. And then as you go down, you do less and less and get more specific. Less broad, more specific. Really broad about everything you know about the student, pretty broad about what you know about the environment, really more specific when you get to the task, and then hyper specific when you get to the tool. All right? So using things like the consideration and assessment guides and a tool like SET can help you when you're swimming through that ocean of AT and what it can all be, which again, can be anything. Last thing I'll talk to you about. How does AT fit into a universally designed classroom? You know the principles of UDL, multiple means of representation, action, expression, and engagement. AT, letter A, does not equal UDL by itself. A universally designed lesson in a classroom is created by the teacher and then can be supplemented or given more access to by bringing in some assistive technology. Again, it's just part of the bigger picture. This is the set of the newest CAST UDL guidelines, and they even explicitly have optimizing access to tools and assistive technology as part of it. And this is for everybody. This is for all students, right? And we're really fortunate to live in a time where AT is ubiquitous. Is that the word that I'm looking for? It's interesting whenever I talk with the pre-service teachers that often come to our office from Radford and from Virginia Tech and from Longwood and other schools, and then I talk to veteran teachers. They have two very different views of assistive technology. More veteran teachers and folks see AT and consumer technology as two totally different things. And the newer teachers that I see that are undergraduates now, and even some graduates, see them almost as the same thing. And as I was standing here waiting, looking at everybody, waiting on you guys to come back from break to get started, I noticed a lot of people, including myself, on one of these. All right? How many iPhones in the room? Hold them up. Don't be shy. Probably everybody else has an Android phone, right? Have you spent much time in the accessibility features in your iPhone? Well, I encourage you to take 30 seconds right now, open your iPhone if it wasn't open already, and click the gear. And those of you with Android, I can't help you directly because I don't have a visual aid right here, but your settings are very similar. Click the gear, and when you're in your settings, go to where it says General, a little less than halfway down the screen. And then the next page down your general settings, you'll find if you look down the word accessibility and click on that. And then within that, you're going to see ways to magnify the screen, have all the text on the screen read to you or just what you select, how to increase text size, highlight things, change the shapes of buttons, etc., etc., etc. All built into the screen right now. And as I just turned 40 and have put in multifocal contacts for the first time here recently, some of these text size things are my assistive technology right now too, to help me out. These things are built in to Apple products, Google Chrome products, Windows products. They're already there. Younger teachers, younger people know they're there. They might not be using them as an accessibility feature because they have a disability, but that's what they're there and what they're for. These things are everywhere now. You can access them, and by accessing supports like this through devices students already have, it gets around the sometimes sensitive issue of making them stand out or looking different from their peers by using a tool or an accommodation that's different, right? Because everybody's on their phone, they're on their tablet, they're on their computer. It doesn't look much different. It's a lot easier to mix in with the tomatoes and not look like a strawberry. Although I like strawberries too. I like strawberries too, so, you know, maybe not the best metaphor. But what we really want to happen is have your students stand out like this. And using AT can help them reach that goal. And if you have questions, this is the link for my presentation. That's my email address. You can reach out to me with questions on this anytime.